All right. I was going to read through this passage for you if you want to be read to, which is totally fine if you don't. But if you want to be read to, I'm going to read it. So this passage is called Events Leading to American Independence. And American independence means that America could finally be its own country, because it hadn't been. It had been a country belonging to Native Americans, and then it slowly was taken away from the Native Americans, and then people were sent over from England, and the king was in charge. So these are the events leading to the king not being in charge anymore. You can see in this picture that there's something going on here. There is tea being thrown into the harbor, and our caption, which is right here, because remember a caption is what's right under a picture, an engraving from 1789 of the Boston Tea Party. American colonists, angered by England's imposed taxes, threw chests of tea into Boston Harbor from the Library of Congress. You can see right here them throwing the tea over. This picture is totally wrong, though, because it happened in the middle of the night. But anyway. In 1763, the Americans seemed happy enough. The colonies were doing well. British King George III was not especially hard on them. How, then, did everything change? Most American colonists thought of themselves as English citizens. Why did they want to break free from England? So, there was no America at this time. People who were there had come from England, and so they called themselves English, even though they didn't live in England anymore. These people also called themselves British, and that is really important. Many things happened between the years of 1763 and 1776. The colonists thought that Britain was treating them badly. They did not want to pay new taxes. On the other side, the British thought Americans were not paying their share. People living in England paid more taxes. A few important events led to the Revolution. The Royal Proclamation of 1763. The French and Indian War ended in 1763. Britain fought against the French, who had some Native American allies. So, the French and the Native Americans were on one team, and then Britain, which are the people from England, fought against them. The British gained a large amount of land in the Midwest. They did not want American colonists settling there. Some French and Native Americans were still living there. They might have been mad, and Britain didn't want fighting there. The colonists did not believe them. They thought the British were trying to trick them. Each side did not understand the other. So the people over in England were like, hey guys, please, we just won this war. We want everything to work out. We don't want any more wars. We just won this land from the Native Americans. We don't want to make them mad. So please just let them keep living there. We don't want any fighting. And the colonists were like, oh, the British, they're trying to trick us. So we're going to do it anyway. British taxes on colonies. Britain had let the colonies rule themselves. Suddenly, Britain began controlling them. So this first sentence is important. Britain had let the colonies rule themselves. So for a while, there weren't really any rules over here in America. But then all of a sudden, the king was like, oh, we should probably start controlling them and setting rules for them. The British had spent a lot of money on the French and Indian War and other wars. Now they needed money, so they said the Americans had to pay their share of taxes. British citizens still paid higher taxes. Also, some of that money went to protect the colonies. The Americans saw it differently. Americans thought British soldiers were sent to watch them. They did not want to pay for that. Also, the colonists had no elected officials in Parliament in England. They had no control over what the British government did. And I'm going to put here, no vote. They didn't get a vote in what happened to them. They didn't get a vote in paying taxes. So, basically they were saying, okay, if we're not getting a vote, we don't even live in the same country as you. Why are we paying taxes? We don't care if they're less taxes than the other people who actually live in England. We don't live in England at all. So why are we paying taxes for your soldiers to come and spy on us? Stamp Act is passed. Parliament passed the Stamp Act in 1765. Colonists had to pay a tax on paper. Now, land documents and marriage licenses had to be on stamped paper. This special paper showed they paid the tax. Newspaper, dice, and playing cards also were taxed. The colonists refused to buy British goods. Parliament ended the Stamp Act the next year. So, the colonists were like, hey, you're going to charge us for our games? You're going to charge us for the paper that says we're married? We're going to refuse to buy your stuff. And that made the king, which is Parliament, that made him decide, okay, we're going to cancel the Stamp Act. We're not going to keep taxing you on this stuff because we want you guys to buy it, and we're losing money because you're not buying it. New taxes. The British Parliament wanted to show who was boss. It passed a new law. This law said England had total control over the colonies. So, they were like, oh, you're not going to buy our stuff? Okay, we're going to take total control over you. The next taxes were on glass, paper, and tea. As a result, the colonists stopped buying goods from England. So again, they were just like, okay, we're just not going to buy your stuff. The Boston Massacre. The people of Boston were furious about the taxes. So I'm going to use red because that means they were really mad about these new taxes. On March 5th, 1770, they began throwing rocks at British soldiers. I'm going to put a sad face because that probably wasn't a good move. The British fired, which means they shot. They killed 5 men. One of them was Crispus Attucks, who used to be a slave. The Boston Tea Party. In December 1773, townspeople in Boston disguised themselves as Native Americans. They attacked 3 ships. They tossed 342 chests of tea into the water. The tea would be worth about $750,000, and they just threw it away. So, that probably really made, that's supposed to be a crown, that probably really made the King of England mad because the colonies just threw away $750,000 that belonged to England. The Intolerable Act. Parliament was fed up with the colonies. Parliament passed the Intolerable Act. So they were like, oh, you just threw all of our tea into the water? Fine. We're going to pass a new act and control you even more. The law said the tea owners had to be paid back. It closed Boston Harbor until the tea was paid for. The law also stopped town meetings and gave the British governor more power. On September 5th, the First Continental Congress opened in Philadelphia. For the first time, colonies joined together against the British. So, basically what happened is, let's pretend like this is the harbor. And here is the city that's right on the water. If they wanted to, let's say that they grew a whole bunch of corn and they wanted to put their corn on a boat and they were going to sell it to England. What England did is they blocked off the entire harbor with their boats and said, "Oh, you need to make money? That's funny. You owe us $750,000. When you pay us that money, we'll move our boats. But for now, you are trapped in your harbor and you have no way to give away any of your food and sell it, but you also have no way to get food from other places." So that was part of the Intolerable Act. And at that point, the people who lived in America, the colonists, were like, okay, this is ridiculous. They won't get out of our way. They're trying to control us. They're taxing us for tea and paper and dice and playing cards. We're done with this. So they met at the First Continental Congress in Philadelphia, and they decided there that they were ready to be done and that they wanted to start a war.